Alright, what's up everybody? This is A7X Fan Ben. Welcome to the latest Pirates Battle Report. So this was for a solo game, 4 fleets, 100 points. So that's actually one of my favorite fleet number and build total combos ever, because I've had a lot of classic games at that level. I call it 4x100, or if you see 4x100, 4 times 100, that's generally what I'm talking about. So this was 4 fleets, 100 points, and I'll go over the fleets really briefly, but mostly they're going to be in the description so you can see them on PSM list. So here they are set up with all the cards and the crew chips and whatnot. Here's our setup. So I did 3 islands per player, and instead of 4 coins per island, I did 5 coins per island, which ended up working out to 10 coins contributed per fleet. So there was 40 gold instead of 32 for a 4-player game, or 4-fleet game. And we had the terrain vote was interesting, but I'll get to that soon. So actually, I can get to it now. So basically the premise of the different fleets were, we have this fleet, which is called Unleash the Kraken. So this is a new 100-point version. This originally was a 60-point fleet based on a gimmick fleet challenge I ran at Venture Trading. It's actually, the core of the fleet from 2013 is actually based on a 60-point fleet, and then I upgraded it to 100 to fit in this game, basically. So their entire goal is basically to find the Kraken Gong and use a combination of Nemo's plans with Runes of Thor to automate getting 6s on the Kraken Gong every single turn to bring in all 5 Krakens from outside the game and just terrorize the opponents with it and basically eat your opponents for dinner with the Krakens. So that's Unleash the Kraken, one of my favorite fleets I've made, probably overall, especially the original version. It's actually, I think, the first time I've tried it out, so pretty excited. And then this fleet went second. This is called Grimdem Bows. So it's a play on the Grimdem Boys concept I came up with a couple years ago. So we got the Grim, so Grim the Savage, Frozen North, named crew that can, the only crew in the game that has Home Island Horde. So if you dock an opponent's home island, you can take as much treasure as the ship can carry. So that makes him one of the most potent and interesting named crew in the game. And there is some different ways to fit him on the Bouchwan. So if you want to check out that fleet, it's in the description on PSM list. And this was using a replica Bouchwan. I realized partway through fleet building that my original is still in New York State, so I didn't really feel like building my backup copy for this game, so I'm using a replica, and it's actually kind of an old replica from Vulcan, actually. So, and then to fill out the fleet, the Grimdem Bows concept is a 60-point concept similar to Unleash the Kraken, and then I basically filled out the last 40 points with English. So, and then we've got Custom Craze. So this was the 3rd fleet in the play order. They had 5 new ship types and some different new factions, so the Japanese and the Atlanteans, and they had a Jade Turtle, Beifeng Zhanwu, and then Piranus, the Cursed Hydra. So pretty unique fleet with all new stuff, all new custom stuff. And the 4th and final fleet to go in the play order was called Sheer Chaos. So this one is one I was pretty excited about too. We've got the Skin Flayer with all-powerful Davy Jones. We've got Queen of Sheba, support ship. Floating Stone has a combination of Calypso and can swap her out for John DeSaley for El Mover. And Buscador with both canceling and home island rating. So, and they have a ton of UTs. Part of the reason I increased the coins per island is so I could actually contribute 10 unique treasures with this fleet for maximum chaos. So here's the fleets on the countertop with the necessary crew face up and things like that. So we'll get into the gameplay. I'm going to go back to this picture to talk about the setup a tiny bit. So basically the fleets voted on terrain, and Unleash the Kraken, the fleet that went first, they got their wish. So they voted for 4 terrain, and they won the roll-off. They had a tied roll-off with the 2nd fleet, the Grim Bouchwan fleet, and they won that roll-off. The highest terrain vote was 8 per player by Sheer Chaos, of course, who wanted just total craziness on the map. But basically 4 terrain per player, and I limited it to no huge terrain placed. So I think the way I did it, each fleet could place up to 2 oversized terrain, but no huge ones. So believe it or not, that reef at the far left in the west is actually not the biggest reef I have. I think it's the second biggest, so, or the third biggest. But anyway, so they couldn't place any like super mega gigantic terrain, but 2 oversized per fleet. And the way it worked out was there were a lot of reefs, as you can tell, and then some big fog banks as well as a couple whirlpools and Sargasso seas. So that was our setup, and none of the fleets really wanted to be too close to each other, so it kind of worked out where the map was pretty spread out, and each fleet had, in theory, of course, some nearby wild islands they might be able to get treasure from. One of the biggest aspects of the setup was the mysterious islands contributed by the Sheer Chaos and Unleash the Kraken fleet. So Sheer Chaos contributed 3 mysterious islands, Unleash the Kraken contributed 2 mysterious islands, and those would play a huge role in the game. And the reason that they got seeded with reefs is because those 2 fleets that contributed them, they didn't want those mysterious islands to be chosen as home islands because they're not automatically wild. So during the terrain placement, the Kraken and Sheer Chaos fleets, they made sure to basically put reefs all around the mysterious islands that they wanted to remain wild, to try to make sure that those abilities would play a role in the game. And it worked, because nobody picked a mysterious island for a home island because they were just so, you can see most of them are almost covered with terrain, especially a few of them are just ridiculous. Like the one in the far west is like built for the native canoes. Nobody would want to start their game there. So especially the Bauchuan fleet, of course, with the 10 masters being so weak to reefs. So anyway, this is off the cuff, just gonna seg straight into it. So turn 1, Unleash the Kraken. They did exactly as they wanted to. So they have got a mysterious island called Isle of Thisaga. This one's from Savage Shores, that allows you to, on a low roll, on a 1 or 2, you can fling the treasure from that island to 2 or more other wild islands. So they intentionally redocked the canoes until they got a low roll. You can see the 1, and then they flung the treasure closer to home. So that was their whole strategy here, because they're trying to find the Kraken Gong and just abuse it to bring in all the Krakens and just eat the other players of the Krakens. That's what their goal is. That's the whole premise of the fleet. So they're basically trying to warp treasure closer to home. So in case the Gong was on that island, now it's getting warped closer to where they've got all these gold runners. They're about to swarm out and start exploring. And that's exactly what happened. So, well, they didn't find it right away, but they also have 2 spires. So they had a couple island spires in the form of the Raven's Neck in Morocco. So they were spying 2 coins per player turn, per fleet turn. So then they could spy up to 8 coins on islands per round of turns, which is pretty good rate, and allows you to find most of the treasures in the game relatively quickly. So Frontier used her hoist arm when it was just barely able to reach this mysterious island. Importantly, she didn't dock at it, so she didn't have to trigger that mysterious island effect. This is actually a mysterious island contributed by the Sheer Chaos fleet, and it's a suction. It's a vacuum treasure suction, where on a 5 or 6, you get to warp 2 random coins from all other wild islands in play to this island. But since she didn't dock, she couldn't even get to the dock. She didn't have enough movement. She just used the hoist arm, which doesn't count as docking, so she didn't trigger that mysterious island roll in the first place. But she was able to explore, find all these goodies, and she had Christian Jefferson Esquire, a named American crew that I don't know if I've ever used him before. He's got the island treasure trading ability, and they found wolves, but of course, with island treasure trading, they're able to trade that without the other players knowing about it, and they got a 7 in return. So the Americans off to a good start, or the Kraken fleet, I should say, Unleash the Kraken, and they were really happy to find Runes of Thor, because that was one of their key UTs. Their goal is to combine that with Nemo's plans so they can reuse it and force the Kraken Gong roll to a 6 on every turn to keep bringing in Krakens until they have all of them in play. So they were happy to get Runes of Thor and trade away the wolves. The problem was they then explored the middle wild island with the Banshee's Cry, but so they did find Nemo's plans, which they were hyped about, but they also found Pandora's Box, which of course is always just an absolute nut job of chaos. So the shenanigans were really in full force here. There were a ton of UTs in play, and these fleets were ready just go nuts. So Pandora's box, I'm going to try to not delve into the details too much. There was almost a negotiation. Let me look over my notes here. There was almost a negotiation about what the fleets would bring in, because you can have a double elimination of UTs via the ones you see on the left. So Karmic Idol and Pirata Codex, those eliminate all face-up UTs in the game. And if you only bring in one of those, the Unleash the Kraken fleet, they can bring in a Jailhouse Dog, which is a UT from Caribbean that allows you to eliminate a UT, almost like an interrupt, like a canceller in a way. But you can only use it on one. So basically, if this is left to right, so the fleet that finds Pandora's box picks last. So that's Runes of Thor. So Unleash the Kraken, they get to pick last, so they get to see what the other fleets give them via Pandora's box before they pick what they contribute via the box. So they can see what nastiness the other fleets give them, and then if they want, they can base their selection on that. So the way it worked was other fleets really didn't like what they were seeing. This is still turn 1 of round 1, and you already see they've got like all these Runes of Thor would be face down, of course, but this whole row of 5, all that weaponry and whatnot, that was all face up. And then of course Nemo's Plans is face up too, and Native Lore. So the way I do the rows is like, in this case it's like the top row is like what the other fleets would see, and then the bottom row is like face down and what they wouldn't see. But anyway, so basically the people that went after Unleash the Kraken got to pick first. So in this case, that was the Bauchuan fleet. So they picked Karmic Idol, and then the Custom Craze fleet was next. They knew that if they didn't put in a Pirata Codex, and then the next fleet, the Skinflayer Sheer Chaos fleet, if they didn't either, then the Unleash the Kraken fleet could bring in a Jailhouse Dog, cancel the Karmic Idol, and then it wouldn't take effect. So all those face-up positive UTs, they would retain them by using the dog to cancel the idol. So then, as a result, Custom Craze brought in Pirata Codex. So that way, it's almost like it's pretty much the same thing as Karmic Idol, just from a different set. Same effect of wiping out face-up UTs. So that way, if they bring in a Jailhouse Dog, there's no point, because they can only cancel one of them with the dog. So that way, it basically guaranteed, unless of course the Sheer Chaos fleet helped them out with another dog, but that's not what happened. So basically it guaranteed that they would wipe the face-up UTs from the board. So Sheer Chaos went with natives to try to stick Banshee's Cry. This is kind of a mistake on my part. I should have done a different one, because then that got wiped out via the idol as well. But then Unleash the Kraken, since they knew they were doomed on the UTs at this point, there was no point in using a dog and canceling one of them, and the other one would get through. So they basically gave themselves a face down UT, because that would not be eliminated. So because Karmic Idol takes effect first, it takes out the face up UTs, and then face down UTs are loaded after face up UTs are resolved. So there's an order of operations in the Pirate Code towards the end of it, talking about explore action order of operations. That's good to read. So anyway, so basically they gave themselves another Runes of Thor, because they've already got one, but they knew that the idol and the codex would wipe Nemo's Plans. They wanted Nemo's Plans with Runes of Thor, but with Nemo's Plans gone, they didn't have a way to do that. At least it didn't look like it. But what I'm not saying is they had a mysterious island that allowed you to bring in UTs from outside the game. It was elsewhere on the board. They knew where it was because they memorized what it looks like. This really gets into this crazy like strategic meta and memorizing what mysterious islands look like when they're face down, so you know what the effects are when they flip. It's just crazy. But anyway, so I was going into more detail than I expect, but I'm happy to be doing this report the same day I played the game, because I can give more details on the craziness that happened. So, because if I did this tomorrow, it'd probably be like half as long. But anyway, so because this just happened earlier today. So anyway, so Since they knew they could use Runes of Thor, their second copy of it at that mysterious island to get a positive roll to bring in a UT from outside the game, that would be their way of getting another Nemo's plans. So then they could essentially get it back, and then they would kind of waste a Runes of Thor to get that. But then the idea would be whatever ship at that mysterious island later in the game that gets Nemo's plans, you could transfer the original Runes of Thor to that ship, and then you'd have your combo where you have an auto 6 every turn, which is their goal with the Kraken Gong, to make it so that they're not relying on luck to bring in the Krakens. So that was the Pandora's Box shenanigans. There was there was a little bit of a negotiation at least, but then it fell apart because the fleets really didn't want to be nice to unleash the Kraken. So anyway, and then HMS Phoenix set sail. So now we're finally into the second turn of the first round, and the English part of the Bouchuan fleet started doing some damage. So this is a snipe shot at LL range with fire shot, and they got lucky. They got a 6 to set the Morocco aflame. So a nice shot by the HMS Phoenix there. Tower was being towed by Rye, and this is round Earth. So they went, let me go back here. Actually, that's too far to go back, whatever. So they were in the northwest, and then that next picture I was going to show is Tower and Rye and Bouchuan. They all round Earth to the southwest. So that way Bouchuan went into a fog bank, and then to join San Cristobal, actually. And then Tower and Rye were there too. And Bouchuan was able to mark this island explored before ducking into the fog bank, because she got same action twice via Warlord Cavendish. The reason she didn't explore it is because they were way too scared of like plague, missionary, things like that. It's really risky to explore a fresh wild island in a big crazy game like this with like a loaded crew setup, because if you find like plague or missionary and you've no way to trade it away or deal with it, then your entire massive crew setup, which is like sometimes 30 points or more, is just crushed, and your whole strategy is busted. So they were going to wait and let Rye explore that island. She just didn't have the movement to get there. So all right, so this shows more the eastern side of the map to finish out the first round. So the big thing here is Calypso got her roll on Floating Stone. So the Sheer Chaos fleet was able to place 2 whirlpools. One of them they placed in the far east, all away from that mysterious island. And Davy Jones, all powerful, he got like a 1 through 4 roll in order to get a double action. So he went through this first whirlpool near the Sheer Chaos home island, came out and smashed up the Dragonwing Cutter, the Draconium from the newly released Rise of Atlantis mega pack. So, and they were able to kill the Wraith Trident as well. So they smashed the custom fleet a little bit there, but the custom fleet is headed out. Trojan and Yamagawa looks like they're headed towards the same mysterious island as Raven's Neck, and then Piranus and the giant turtle are headed out, kind of slow, but. And then here we see Skinflayer has waylaid the Draconium and made her dismasted. She had a face down oarsman that the curse didn't know about. So, all right. So this is where things got crazy, of course, as expected. So via their spires, the Unleash the Kraken fleet were able to see that Kraken Gong was already on the island that San Cristobal was kind of headed towards. So this is the island that's right here. It's in that southwest area that the Bouchuan almost wanted to explore, but thought better of it in case there would be missionary or plague. But so as soon as the Unleash the Kraken fleet spied on it, they immediately sent San Cristobal go explore the island, picked up the Kraken Gong, and the other treasures were really good. So explosive 773. Most of the gold contributed in this game was like really high value, except for some silver coins from the custom fleet. But anyway, and then you can see the canoes are rushing to flood the area as well. And the way this worked is they basically used the canoe ability to transfer the gong to a ship that was less likely to be in harm's way, because this is still really near that fog bank where the Bouchuan could come out of and smash up the San Cristobal. All right, this is where the game got completely destabilized. This was the game right here in a lot of ways, for better or worse. So Very improbable what happened. Morocco basically, her fire spread, and then, but she still had a helmsman. And of course, with galley, she can keep rowing. So when the fire mass spreads, you scuttle on the next turn. So she still had her actions for this turn and really next turn too, if they wanted to give her an action next turn before scuttling her. So the fire spread, she rowed S+S to dock at this mysterious island. She then proceeded to roll a 6, which allowed her, when she explored, she had an explorer as well. She was able to do this right away. When the ship explores this island, replace a treasure coin with a unique treasure from your collection. So what was really brilliant is they had a negative UT, Maps of Hades. They were able to replace that with Altar of the Loa. So this is, if you don't already know, this is probably the most powerful unique treasure in Pirates. Basically, you're able to like sacrifice 2 crew when you're docked at the island, and then you can basically give actions on the next player's turn. Like the player to your left, you can control their fleet, so you can pick which actions they get and what they do with them, or give them no actions at all. So it's a completely busted, broken UT, and I didn't really want to play it too badly, but the problem was, if they didn't do this, I think their chance of winning would go way down, because the Grim Fleet was in position to strike San Cristobal and either steal or sink the Kraken Gong, whether it was from the San Cristobal or on a nearby native canoe. And Phoenix was still in good position, so they basically looked at the situation. I thought about this for probably at least 10 minutes, but so like which UT to bring in, basically. They thought about bringing in like another Kraken Gong just to have like another copy, but they decided Altar the Loa would give them the best chance at winning the game, because then Morocco was already kind of doomed, most likely, with the fire it's going. So she was able to sack John Ward and her explorer. They were sacrificed to the altar to feed the Loa, and this would give them pivotal control over the Baochuan fleet on Grim the Savage's next turn, which was, the next turn in the game. So, and they also picked up Eye of Insanity, Knights of Malta Banner, and they got a 7 and 4 on this island. So obviously a really good and interesting island, but the way the fire spread, and then they were able to still dock, they got lucky, and then they replaced the bad UT with like the most broken one probably in the game. So just completely ridiculous, like pivotal moment in the game that would shape a lot of things for really the rest of the duration of the game. So here we see the canoes have used their ability to yank the Kraken Gong onto a canoe that's in the reef. The reason they did this is to make it as far away from the Grim Fleet as possible. I think that happened before the altar was brought in, because once the altar was brought in, it doesn't even matter. They control the other fleets. So it doesn't matter how close they are, really. So there was a lot of thought put into this too, like the way San Cristobal is docked. She's blocking that canoe. So I measured it. If Baochuan came out of the fog bank and tried to go astern of the San Cristobal, there's not enough room for her to fit. So she would not be able to use the same action twice to sink this canoe that has the Kraken Gong. And Rye with Tower probably wouldn't be either. Maybe if they got an Admiral's action, but anyway. Again, all this was a moot point with the Altar the Loa brought in. And then there was also a lot of, while this altar debate was going on, like whether or not they'd bring it in, there was a lot of debate on whether or not the Unleash the Kraken fleet would build a fort either here and or here. So by this time, Frontier had brought home those coins from that other island, including a 7. So they actually had enough gold to build 2 forts in one turn if they wanted to. So they could simultaneously protect Morocco. The problem is it would shut down that island ability, because the mysterious islands don't function when a fort is on it. And then they also thought about bringing in a fort here to protect this really high value gold, whatever, 17 or whatever it was, and also try to protect the San Cristobal from a multi-action Baochuan potentially coming out of the fog bank and slamming her. So it was looking like they would either build 2 forts, or they could just basically not do any of that, just bring in the altar, and they wouldn't have to build any forts, and then they could just control the enemy. So they ended up taking that, much safer route, basically. So This shows just looks like a higher view of the same situation. It shows Frontier is docked. Banshee's Cry is in the process of starting to transfer that extra Runes of Thor to Raven's Neck. Because right now, Unleash the Kraken, their plan is to use that at this mysterious island they just discovered. So the next ship that docks there, they can get an Auto 6, and then they can use that to bring in Nemo's plans, preferably on Frontier, because she has the original Runes of Thor. So they're basically trying to use their extra Runes of Thor to get back the Nemo's plans they've lost via Karmic Idol earlier in the game. And then Sheer Chaos has sent Queen of Sheba through this whirlpool. The reason they're doing that is because they know this is one of the mysterious islands that the Sheer Chaos fleet contributed. So they know that this is the treasure suction ability. So if this ship docks here and gets a 5 or 6, she gets to warp. They get to teleport 2 coins from every other wild island straight to this island, which is just crazy. It's one of the most broken or overpowered mysterious islands in the game. So anyway, so that was kind of Sheer Chaos, what their goal was there, sending Queen of Sheba through the whirlpool. And this is where it fell apart for the Bao Chuan fleet. So with the Altar of the Loa establishing control over the Bao Chuan fleet, they couldn't give their ships proper action. So Unleash the Kraken had almost complete control over Rim the Savage's Bao Chuan fleet, and somewhat predictably, they sent the Bao Chuan out of the fog bank straight onto a reef. She lost 7 masts, and I think Phoenix and Rai got sent packing. Basically, they got sent away from their current positions. So, kind of predictably disastrous turn for the Bao fleet. And then here's what we got: Custom Craze. They were getting into some interesting action here. So, here's another mysterious island that allows you to replace treasure coin with a unique treasure from your collection. So this is Yamagawa exploring that island. So she found bad maps. That was the one she replaced with Nemo's charts. So Nemo's charts might seem like kind of a little bit of a passive option. It's not the most powerful thing they could have picked. They could have brought in an Altar of the Loa, or whatever they wanted. But part of the reason they picked Nemo's charts is they didn't want to anger the other fleets too much. They didn't want to look like a huge threat. And part of it was because they could see the writing on the wall that if the Bao Chuan fleet went down, the next fleet in the turn order would be the Custom Craze fleet. So the Bao Chuan fleet was eliminated, and the Kraken fleet was still using the Altar of the Loa. Custom Craze would be the next fleet to get, controlled. So they were worried about that. And they basically, their goal, and they announced this to the other fleets, their goal was to use Nemo's charts as a bargaining chip. So this basically gives you +2 to your die roll when you dock in a mysterious island. So that makes it 2/3 of the time you get a 5 or 6 basically, because 3 is turned into 5s, 4 is turned into 6s, and you can't get the negative effect because everything is 3 or 4 or higher. So basically 2/3 of the time they would get that powerful replace a treasure with a UT from your collection, and they were going to basically use that as a bargaining chip where they were going to keep Yamagawa docked at this island, and then if any other fleets messed with them, they would redock, use Nemo's charts, try to trigger that effect, and then they could bring in, Jailhouse Dog, a Kraken Gong. They could bring in Altar the Loa if the fleet after them was attacking them. So, and then Trojan has basically touched the stern of Yamagawa because she plans to take the 7. Because Yamagawa, her role right now is basically to stay at this mysterious island and redock with the charts to farm it for UTs basically, so as needed. So Trojan she's like a hybrid, so she's gonna take the 7 and bring it home so they get some gold. Oh, this was crazy. So Piranus surfaced. So basically Draconium, she flipped her oarsman, her face down oarsman, which kind of surprised the curse a little bit. She rode towards that island. She was not able to dock at that mysterious island. That freed up a little bit of space, and Piranus, with my Hydra and revised Sea Monster keyword, she was able to move and shoot. So surface, move and shoot, and then she has that ability where her S-range cannons can shoot basically fire shots or fire pots, and she went 3 for 3. So she set the skin flare pretty much completely aflame and doomed that ship. Of course, she has Eternal. The reason she didn't sink her, she actually didn't attack with her 4L heads, was because they already knew Skinflayer was Eternal. So if they sank her, it would just get her repairing even faster. This way, it would kind of hopefully delay things and force the curse to scuttle the ship on their next turn. So that was a pretty cool fire-breathing attack by the epic Hydra Piranus. So a little bit of cursed on cursed Civil War here. So Davy Jones, as powerful as he was, he couldn't control the crazed Hydra, which set his ship aflame. But they were able to dock. So the reason the curse didn't go home here, because they were next in the turn order, so now we're into the Sheer Chaos Fleet turn. They didn't go home because they had Eternal, so they didn't really care about the fires creating an automatic scuttle. What they really wanted was to dock at this mysterious island. So you're seeing a theme here. So the Sheer Chaos Fleet, this was another one of their mysterious islands they intentionally placed, and they memorized the positive effect of it. So, and they got it. So they got a 6, so they can move an opposing ship using this ship's base move. So this is like one of the core islands of my mind control fleet from back in the day, one of my favorite fleets I've ever made. So I don't think they were able to do much with it, though. I don't know if these pictures even really show. Yeah, I don't think they were able to do too much with it. But anyway, sometimes like ships aren't as close to reefs as you want them to be, and things just don't work out right. But anyway, this was kind of a weird trend where the Sheer Chaos Fleet, they kind of had their luck kind of deserted them when they needed it. And this is a great example. So later that turn, they had Queen of Sheba and Buscador both dock at this island, the one that has the treasure warp on a 5 or 6. They were trying to basically suction treasure to this island, but they both got low rolls, and there was no treasure left to like put out to the other islands for the low effect. But basically, this started a trend where Sheer Chaos tried to suction treasure to this island, and they just kept failing over and over again. They couldn't get the good rolls when they redocked. So, all right. So this shows an overview of the entire map. So you can see Phoenix has been sent away there. Bauchuan was moved off the reef. I think that may have been Skinflayer, the ship that got moved, probably. So anyway, other than that, this doesn't really show anything new. It's just kind of an overview picture. It looks like Calypso has been dropped off at the Sheer Chaos home island in favor of John DeSaley. So that's because Calypso, they would swap back and forth a little bit throughout this game, but they didn't really need Calypso of return, so they wanted to use both. So DeSaley came aboard for El Mover. So, all right. So, actually, you know what? Morocco is the one they moved. So Skinflayer moved Morocco L southwards because she wanted to try to wreck her on the reef, which didn't work. And they also were trying to put her farther away from help that was on the way from her Unleash the Kraken fleet brethren. So somehow they were able to still pull it off. So this was a really kind of a key transfer, actually. So Morocco rode S+S. This is her last turn, so I know she has to be scuttled this turn, but you can still give an action. You choose basically when the automatic scuttle from fire masts happens. So she was able to row S+S northwards and basically get just far enough so that Frontier could round Earth, extend her hoist arm all the way, and just barely touch the prow of the ship and transfer all 3 cargo. So this would give the Unleash the Kraken fleet basically a crew that they could sack at the Ultraloa, and along with a couple of good UTs. So Eye of Insanity and Knights Malta Banner. So Eye of Insanity is key in this game because it's kind of like allows your crew to like copy any cursed crew in play, essentially. So you can kind of turn like basically what the Frontier would do is turn her American oarsman into like a pseudo Davy Jones with all powerful. So yeah, Eye of Insanity, when there's like an all powerful crew in play, it can be really, really good. So that was a pretty interesting transfer that they were able to pull off, just barely enough distance to do it. So here with the Bauchuan out of the way, Unleash the Kraken is free to return to this island and basically load up coins on the canoes. So 7, 7, and 3 from right to left there. And then at this point, San Cristobal still has explosives aboard. and I think she was docking there just to protect the canoes and like a deterrent force in case Rye and the tower or Phoenix came back into the area. San Cristobal would be there to try to protect this gold. And notice that the canoe with the Kraken gong has gone to the fog bank, and she would remain there basically for the whole game. So even if she had to be given actions for the canoes, she would just pop out of the fog bank and just go back in with the reef, and the reefs can't do damage to a canoe. So that was basically it. The Kraken gong was safe, hidden in the fog, and Unleash the Kraken was so far really doing well. So, and then here the Baochuan fleet fails again. So even though they didn't, that's what happened. So Unleash the Kraken, they were not able to establish a second consecutive turn of control over the Baochuan fleet because they couldn't dock any ships with enough crew at that altar island. So the Phoenix was able to round Earth back to the southwest, but she only went 1 for 4 against San Cristobal. Or actually, you know what? No, she's 0 for 4. That 5, I think that needed a snipe shot. I think it was like an extended range shot, or like L+L. I don't even know, something like that. Either way, she failed miserably against San Cristobal, and then Rye and Tower were not able, since they got sent away via the altar last turn, they were not able to get into position to be in range. So a rough turn, trying to recover for the Baochuan fleet. And then Custom Craze was up next, and Beifang Zhanwu was able to explore a faraway island in the northeast and found some good stuff overall. 13 total gold if the banner would count as 5 when unloaded. So solid island. And then Draconium was able to row, somehow still alive. She was able to row to this mysterious island, and I think she got the low result, which eliminates mass, but she was already massless, so it didn't matter. And these are the coins she got. So the key here is she has the treasure trading ability, island treasure trading, just like Christian Jefferson Esquire. So even though she found the wolves, she was able to trade them just like Christian Jefferson Esquire did earlier in the game, even though it's in a different fleet. So island treasure trading came in pretty big in this game. So she traded the wolves for that 4. So she had to load the 4, and then the other coins on the island were crazy, of course. So we got another Pandora's box, lost wine, and an abandoned shipwright. So we had another delay of game to figure out. This one was not nearly as long as the first one. The first one was like 20 to 30 minutes probably, figuring out all the UTs to bring in. This one was more simple. So fleets mostly gave them crappy ones, but Bad Maps, Missionary. So I think Bad Maps, that was contributed by sheer chaos because the previous one was thrown out, I think, or not, or tossed away or whatever. So, and then Missionary would take out the Silver Explorer and the Oarsman on the Draconium, and then Karmic Idol was played by the Baochuan fleet because even though they knew it might get canceled by the dog because they'd already seen that neither of the other fleets had put in an idol or Pirata Codex, they still wanted to just give it a shot because they really wanted to eliminate the Kraken Gong and the Altar of the Loa. They had to just throw the Hail Mary and hope that the Custom Craze fleet wouldn't bring in the Jailhouse Dog, but the Custom Craze fleet, of course, did. Partly because they wanted to protect their own UTs, because now they have Nemo's charts on Yamagawa, which is a big bargaining chip, and they also had that Barbary banner that they had just found. So because of mostly those two and a few others, it was better for Draconium to take these 2 bad ones and cancel the wipe, the face-up UT wipe with the dog, than get all their UTs knocked out. So basically, Jailhouse Dog counteracted Karmic Idol, and then Bad Maps and Missionary still took effect. But Bad Maps didn't really. They moved the island. The Sheer Chaos fleet was able to move the island northeast, but it didn't really have a big effect on the game where it got moved. So this is where things continued to deteriorate for all fleets not named Unleash the Kraken. So the 6 represents, I think, an Eye of Insanity roll basically for Davy Jones All Powerful, because like I said earlier, they were using their American oarsmen via Eye of Insanity to basically be a proxy for an all powerful Davy Jones, because you're basically able to turn one of the crew on your ship into a cursed crew that's already in play, which of course they would pick all powerful Davy Jones, which is on the Skin Flayer. So Frontier is becoming quite the kingpin ship and was quite the pivotal vessel. This is where things really got even more ridiculous. So they were able to use the Runes of Thor. That's the one on Raven's Neck. So that's that extra. They were able to pull off their plan exactly as they intended. So basically, they used the Runes of Thor to guarantee that they would get this mysterious island roll. When the ship explores this island, replace one treasure coin with the UT from your collection. So now Wolves was there because it got traded by Draconium. So they flung Wolves onto this altar island, partly I think to make this island like harder to deal with. The problem was Frontier still had her own island treasure trading. So as soon as they found the Wolves, they were like, well, we don't want that. And they didn't trade it. They replaced it. So they took the Wolves out of the game, used this island effect that they guaranteed with the extra Runes of Thor, and replaced the Wolves with Nemo's plans. So now this is really ugly for the other fleets, because now Frontier has Nemo's plans and still has her original, still face down copy of Runes of Thor, which means that now the Unleash the Kraken fleet can have a guaranteed 6 every turn, which of course they want to use on the Kraken Gong primarily, but they could also use it on All Powerful that they have access to via the Eye of Insanity. So, and to make it even worse, of course they sacrificed 2 crew. They sacrificed Jefferson and that helmsman they picked up from Morocco to the altar, which gave them another turn of control over the Baochuan fleet, and that would be used to just completely decimate them. Phoenix basically was already a sitting duck. So San Cristobal laid waste to her, dismasted the ship. And then, this was even before they took the turn as the Baochuan fleet. So we're still doing the Unleash the Kraken fleet. So they had canoes going to fog banks to protect the gold, and they had just another great turn basically. So, and then basically they wrecked the Baochuan. So this was the end of Grim the Savage, and pretty much the end of the Jades for the most part in this game. So a sad scene, but definitely pretty epic. So when they took control of the Baochuan fleet via the Altar of the Lower, they just slammed her right into another reef. This was a really cool angle. Reminds me of the Titanic a tiny bit, but anyway, I was able to prop up. I think with the 3 masts standing, the ship fell over if you didn't put the other hull piece underneath it, but it looks better with the hull kind of like splayed out like that anyway. So that's another tip. If you ever get shipwrecks that kind of topple over with their remaining masts, sometimes you can prop them up with the hull piece you can take out and then use that to kind of balance them. So Baochuan met a grisly fate. All crew lost. I mean, they were still on the shipwreck, but spoiler, but nobody explored the shipwreck. Part of the issue is like Miss Chang had ransom, but you can't load like a 0-point crew unless it's a ship of the same nationality. So this was a shipwreck, and they had a horrible game. So they didn't even reveal any of the crew. They didn't reveal Anna Maria, Grim the Savage, or Bianco's haulers, or even the captain and explorer and oarsman, I don't think. So just a completely disastrous game for the Grim the Savage Baochuan fleet. But anyway, so Custom Craze was next. So they went ahead and Yamagawa did what she had threatened to do earlier in the game. So they redocked, they used Nemo's charts they turned a 3+2 with Nemo's charts into a 5 and brought in a Jailhouse Dog. So they replaced a silver 1 from the island with Jailhouse Dog, and then they used it to eliminate the altar. So they crushed the altar out of the game. You can see this island here, zoomed in on, and now it doesn't have the altar on it anymore. So Custom Craze saw just how powerful Unleash the Kraken was was becoming with the help of Alter the Loa, and they wanted to put a stop to that. So they didn't want to bring in Karmic Idol because obviously they didn't want to get rid of their Barbary Banner and Nemo's Shards. So they brought in like instead of like a total wipe, they brought in like the precision canceller with the Jailhouse Dog to wipe out the altar. You got the Baochuan Shipwreck on that massive reef in the far west, and then looks like Phoenix is like rode a little bit, but I think they intentionally positioned Rai so that she would be San Cristobal with her next move and shoot. She'd be able to sink Phoenix, in theory at least, and then also dismass the Rai while remaining out of canceling range. So, because the Rai's canceller made it a little bit tricky to get rid of that pairing. But anyway, so Buscador, I think, has failed to redock successfully that island. She can't get that suction roll. Raven's Neck has Round Earth to the north because she wants to sacrifice her crew at the altar, but now the altar's gone, so it wouldn't work out. Queen of Sheba has gone through this middle whirlpool. She gave up trying to do the treasure suction for sheer chaos. She's just trying to get some small gold from the middle. Skinflayer is back, ready to go. So with the help of Davy Jones, all powerful, she was able to repair 2 masts per turn. So she did get scuttled via the fire mast, but then Eternal warped her back to her home island, and within just 2 turns, because of all powerful, she was able to repair 4 masts in 2 turns. And then I think that's pretty much it for this picture. So, and then Banshee's Cry is kind of looking, I think she's looking around her too, but now the altar's gone, so she can't use her crew there. All right, so now we're starting to get towards the end a little bit. So finally, at long last, after using the Auto 6, I think they used it on an all-powerful Eye of Insanity roll, if I remember right. But eventually, Unleash the Kraken fleet, they finally got their 6, and they were able to bring in a Kraken. So Unleash the Kraken has brought in Terex and surrounded Tower with it. You can't surround a docked ship, and you also can't shoot with a Kraken on the same turn that it surrounds a ship. So even though you can place a Kraken with Kraken Gong underneath a ship right away, because it says within S, but then the code clarifies that you can actually put it straight underneath the ship, but you still can't really get the first shot. So, but they placed Terex under Tower. Part of the reason they didn't go with the crew canceling Krakens is just because they had so many crew in use that they didn't want to roll for those abilities. So like Kraken and the Kraken are generally the best or the most powerful Krakens, but they didn't want to roll for those abilities and then shut down all their important crew, like the helmsman on San Cristobal and the captain and all the Frontiers, great crew, the tribal chieftain, the Eye of Insanity stuff. So they wanted to go with the basic Krakens at least to start with. So here, this really illustrates how much of a blowout this game really was. So basically, the Sheer Chaos fleet, they tried redocking this island to do the treasure suction probably at least 3 or 4 times. They never got it. And then as soon as the Unleash the Kraken fleet, which was already the dominant fleet in the game, and as soon as they tried it, they got a 6 right away with this canoe. So at this point, there were only 4 coins on Wild Islands to even suction to this area. So, but they got trees 4, 1, 1. So those were the last 4 wild coins still on Wild Islands at this point. So the canoe loaded a 4 and a 1, as you can see there, and then the trees and the 1 are there. This canoe is still in that fog bank. I think she got some bad rolls coming out, so she kind of wanted to stay safe with that coin. One of them has returned, I think, with a 7. I think that one in the south has a 7 as well. And let's see. Yep, so San Cristobal has hit the Rye from afar, from outside of canceling range. And the Tower has actually gone 4 for 4 to smash up Terex. So Terex only has half of its segments left. Phoenix was able to escape somehow and is almost back home to repair. And then Banshee's Cry and Raven's Neck are just doing some stuff to try to get gold or help the canoes get gold home and protect them and things like that. So, and then, so now we're really into the end game. So basically, Sheer Chaos had horrible luck throughout this game, and they still had no gold. And at this point, the treasure suction had taken away this little one that Queen of Sheba was trying to get, it got suctioned away. So they were just pissed and just really down on their luck. So they basically said, screw it, we're just going to start trying to home island raid right away. So they still had Fernando Sanchez and Nemesio Diaz face down on Buscador. So they basically, Calypso was back on Floating Stone. She created a whirlpool LOA from the Wild Island that's off camera to the right, to the east, the one that Yamagawa was using. And Buscador came through there. She's not docked, but she's like right near the island. Can't dock, like coming out of a whirlpool technically. So and then Skin Flayer and Queen of Sheba are right behind. So basically the sheer chaos fleet is just swarming the home island of the favorite to win right now, the Unleash the Kraken fleet. And actually they were actually starting to work with Custom Craze a little bit. So even though those fleets battled earlier in the game with Draconium and Piranus against Skin Flayer, they both saw the writing on the wall that if they didn't work together at least a little bit, which didn't really happen, but they kind of coordinated like casually, but they didn't really like create a proper alliance. But they knew that if they fought each other more, Unleash the Kraken would just run away with the victory even more than they already were so far. So, and you can see Yamagawa trying to get in on the action, but basically sheer chaos, looking to rob the home island of Unleash the Kraken, especially while Raven's Neck is in a little bit of a weird position and San Cristobal is off way in the southwest, not right at home. So it looked like a decent time to raid. And also they were running out of time to raid anyway, and they were angry. So sheer chaos was not really able to create as much chaos as they wanted this game, and things didn't really go their way, unfortunately. So here's Frontier using, I think, an extra action via the Eye of Insanity, aka Davy Jones, basically like an American Davy Jones. She basically headed out, used her hoist to grab all 3 coins from these 2 native canoes, and then she was able to redock at the home island to unload them, so that just made them even richer. You'll notice the Kraken Gong has been used to place a fearsome creature underneath Buscador. So that hoist is surrounded now by another Kraken. So second Kraken to be brought into the game. Let's see. So Terex was able to get revenge on the Tower Flotilla. I don't know if I've ever seen a flotilla versus a Kraken before, but Kraken won this one. So I think she went 3 for 4 to take out the flotilla. And Rye was also sunk. So this whole English combo was down and out, which left the Baochuan fleet with only HMS Phoenix. So 3 out of their 4 units have been sunk or shipwrecked. So all right, so this area got really crazy. It looked like it was going to be a crazy endgame, but it actually ended up being a lot faster than I anticipated, which was okay because the game kind of was a little disappointing, but just because of how many things like went kind of strange and awry, and it got kind of weirdly lopsided. Usually these 4x100 games have like a really close final score, but maybe I was due for a little bit of a dud. It was still a fun game and exciting for the first like half of it, but this one was a little weird compared to the really competitive, interesting ones in the past. But like I said, maybe I was due for this 4x100 format to finally disappoint a little bit. So basically the Custom Craze fleet has joined sheer chaos at the home island of the leader, Unleash the Kraken. I think at this point Unleash the Kraken had like somewhere like low 20s in gold, and then I think it was like 775 via Barbary Banner for 19 total gold on the home island of the Custom Craze fleet. So Custom Craze was still in it for sure, but they kind of needed, there was some tension between them and sheer chaos, not only because they had fought earlier in the game, but also because the Custom Craze fleet kind of needed the home island raider. They kind of needed to capture Fernando Sanchez of the Buscador to raid themselves, to raid the Unleash the Kraken fleet. So it was a little awkward. It was like confusing whether or not Custom Craze was going here to help out with the home island raid or to try to kind of like circumvent it and commandeer it basically. So, and then we got Trojan coming in from a whirlpool as well. So basically a lot of ships converging here. So as a result, Raven's Neck has returned. She's docked her home island for safety and is ready for some combat coming up. So now finally, Sheer Chaos was able to flip Nemesio Diaz. He was still face down until now. They canceled the Kraken keyword, and Buscador was able to just, once the Kraken keyword is canceled, it's not trapping you anymore. So Buscador canceled the Kraken keyword and just raided the home island. I did a random home island raid. I think it's better than having the loser choose, because then you'll just get a 1. But then if the raider chooses, it's a huge swing, because then you'll take a 7 every time, or whatever the best you can get. So I did a random coin. I think that's the best way to handle home island raiders as a house rule, instead of having the loser choose. So they got a 3 in the random draw. So not great, but at least not one of the ones they had. So Buscador raided for a 3, and then basically Davy Jones went nuts, and with the help, I think he got a little help from Queen of Sheba, but he was able to kill a fearsome creature and also touch the Buscador. So they're actually touching on purpose, because in case Buscador gets like dismasted, but then can explore, Skinflare next turn to transfer something, and then Skinflare can go through Whirlpool. Sometimes it's good just to have friendly ships touching in these crazy situations, just anticipating a potential explore action from a derelict on a future turn, things like that. So the Kraken, the new one that was brought in, didn't get to use its tentacles at all, just got blown apart, canceled, and then shot to hell by the Cursed and Corsairs. But this was crazy. So they got revenge. Unleashed the Kraken, true to form. Their luck really never ran out this game. They were just a great fleet the whole way through. And here, what they did was, I don't know if they needed the Runes of Thor on the Eye of Insanity all-powerful roll, but they basically got a 6 to control Buscador, move her into range of the native canoes, who were given a shoot action. They both hit, which made Buscador massless. She still had a face-down oarsman, but she had no mass. And then Frontier let loose a broadside and hit 1 out of 3 with that red die on the 3S cannon, which sank the Buscador. So the home island raider was quick and easy kill for the Unleash the Kraken fleet. They didn't even need Raven's Neck or San Cristobal to do it. They basically just copied Davy Jones via Eye of Insanity to yank her into range, and then shot 3 for 5 to sink her. So that was that. And then, because the Canceller here didn't really matter, because they were just given shoot actions. There was no captain to cancel, so it wasn't much the Spanish and the Sheer Chaos fleet could do about it. So there goes the home island raider, and there goes pretty much the last chance for Sheer Chaos to even get any gold, pretty much. And it also really accelerated the end game, because with no proper home island raider, Unleash the Kraken didn't really have much to worry about at this point. And it still ended even faster than I expected, but I'll get to that in a minute. So at this point, Sheer Chaos was just pissed. So Davy Jones is just like angry. He was not going to get any gold, so he just went on a Switchblade rampage. So he got a typical double action via All Powerful, sank the 2 canoes right there, used the blades to board Banshee's Cry so he wouldn't get pinned to a ship at her home island, which is kind of a death sentence usually. And then killed the pirate explorer. And then with the second action, he bladed both ships. So they were both docked at their home island, Frontier and Banshee's Cry. But with the blades, like with the first action, he was able to ram and board without getting pinned. Because if you ram with the switchblades, you're not pinned, which is key, because if you ram Frontier here, you'd get pinned, and then you just get whittled away until you would get sunk, because there's no reason for the other ship to move away or unpin you, basically. So Skinflare, and then true to form with how angry Davy Jones was, he won the boarding party in a complete blowout, 10-4, to kill the American oarsman. And that was against Frontier, and then he also easily won the boarding party against Banshee's Cry. I think they both got 6s, but it was like 10-6, so the pirate helmsman was killed. So Banshee's Cry, no crew left. So at this point, Frontier still had her helmsman and chieftain, so she was still able to use either of those with Eye of Insanity, probably a helmsman, while she's just docked at home doing nothing. The key was, this is actually how they ended the game. It's almost over. So Frontier, that 6, what it represents is a 6 on the all-powerful roll. I think they used the Runes of Thor with Nemo's plans in order to get that 6, I believe. So they basically used Eye of Insanity to copy All Powerful with the Helmsman via Davy Jones, who is still in play. And what they did was they forced the Draconium to dock. So this was the last available gold in play. What the custom Craze fleet wanted to do, they had Tenjiku Tokubei on Yamagawa, who has +1 gold. They were going to give the 4 on Draconium to the Yamagawa to unload it, for 5 gold instead of 4, just to try to maximize the gold value. But I think there was a canoe that sank too, so it was kind of weird. The game ended faster than I expected. Like all of a sudden, basically the Unleash the Kraken fleet saw that Draconium had the last proper golden play. San Cristobal still had explosives aboard, but I'm pretty sure in the past Wolf said that stuff like that, like UTs that don't have a gold value, they're not usually you don't extend the game just because they're still face down. But anyway, and that's how I played it. But anyway, Draconium was forced to dock at her own home island before she wanted to, via the Eye of Insanity, copying Davy Jones basically. So that forced her to unload the 4, which that was the last available gold has been unloaded at home island. So this was the last action of the game, and you can see they've got 23 there. So 2 7s and a 4 is 18. Barbie Banner worth 5 in this case. So 23 gold. Problem was Unleash the Kraken had 36. So they were the runaway winner by a decent margin, as expected, really. Even with the home island raid, they only lost the 3. So, and that was it. So 36 to 23, and then 0 gold for Sheer Chaos. They came in 3rd, technically, because they still had 3 units in play. And the Grim Bautron fleet also had 0 gold. They got last with only 1 unit in play. So they were able to survive with the Phoenix, which kind of surprised me. For a while in the mid-game, it was looking like this was going to be a half or more players eliminated endgame rule, because I thought that between the Altar and the Kraken Gong, I thought Unleash the Kraken was just going to be able to basically kill off 2 of the fleets, because the Bautron fleet was already almost gone, and then they could just move on to the next or whatever, or both of the other fleets. But it kind of worked out funny. It kind of ended quickly, or I should say faster than I thought. And then they were able to force the Draconium home to just end it quick. So it was a little bit anticlimactic, but I was kind of happy to end the game because it was a little weird. It was really a blowout. Unleash the Kraken. They went first. They got their terrain roll. They got the terrain quantity per player they wanted. They found the gong via the spires. I mean, they executed really well. Like, credit to the fleet. They did great. But yeah, they found the gong, and then the Altar is where things got crazy, because their neighbor was basically the Baochuan fleet, and they were able to just absolutely force suicide the Baochuan fleet into submission, which made them kings of the West, and eventually the whole game. So yeah, so it was honestly a huge blowout. It didn't feel like a 13 goal difference. It felt like there was no chance for any of the other fleets for most of the game. Custom Craze was able to play pretty well to get 23 and come in second, but it was kind of a weird game. Like I said, most of the other 4x100s have been really close and just super tight and tense to the end. This was a rare 4x100. It was kind of lame. I still highly recommend the 4 fleets or 4 players, 100 points. I still highly recommend that. This is just an unusual situation where a fleet was able to basically abuse a combination of mysterious islands and unique treasures to totally run away with it and kind of make a mockery of the game, honestly. Basically just force other players to suicide and then bring in Krakens to delay the others, and then basically just win with better coins. So it was interesting, but not my favorite game. I'm going to check my notes to see if there's anything else. Yamagawa Redux, yeah, I talked about that. And then, at the end game, what I forgot to mention, there was a Kraken Gong roll. I think it was already a 6. They didn't need Runes of Thor, so then they used Runes of Thor to force the Eye of Insanity all-powerful roll to a 6. That was when the Buscador got moved into range of the 2 canoes and the Frontier who went 3 for 5 overall to sink the Buscador. So that was kind of a big moment in the end game that really accelerated the end game, because it looked like there might be a lot of home island raiding and like boarding shenanigans and like a potential coalition against the Kraken fleet. But when they got the Kraken gong roll to be a 6 without any help, they were able to reposition Thor to get all powerful also to be a 6. And then, once Buscador was sunk, it's like, whatever. Draconium actually did have the wine UT, but she wasn't able to use it, so she had just repaired and was trying to get that 4 to Yamagawa to plus it up for the Tenjiku's ability. But long term, the custom Craze fleet, obviously they wanted to use the wine to steal like a 7 from the Kraken fleet, but they weren't able to, especially once they got kind of forced to an early end. So it was a little bit disappointing in a few ways. The Grimm's fleet kind of sucked and got literally wrecked. They just had the worst luck in a lot of ways, and it's not just luck, but like once you're up against Ultra Loa, like there's not a lot you can do to come back from it. A lot of times, even just 1 or 2 turns of control is devastating. I think they were controlled for 3 or 4 turns maybe. So Sheer Chaos got a lot of bad die rolls, especially at their Treasure Suction Island. That was a missed opportunity to yank the altar and various coins to themselves. So when that went completely bust, they never ended up getting any gold. So this kind of makes me consider banning some stuff for future solo games. I don't know if I will for sure. I'm thinking about banning Karmic Idol and Piratic Codex, especially in these like max complexity games, because they can really ruin UT combos and like Pandora's Box chaos. It's like there's these certain game pieces that I feel like I know too much about the game. It's like there's certain situations where it's like, well, I should just bring in Karmic Idol and just wipe the field. But then it's like, it just feels lame. It's like, well, yep, they're going to just wipe everything. So, and then if 2 fleets do that, the fleet controlling the box can only bring in 1 jailhouse dog. So it's kind of lame. So then they can only do so much. So unless of course I'm wrong about it and jailhouse dog would cancel both because they're effectively the same ability, like Karmic Idol and Piratic Codex. But anyway, especially since they're different UTs, I didn't play it that way. I don't know. And then I might also ban Alter the Loa and Jailhouse Dog and potentially UT generating Mysterious Islands in future solo games. Not all of them, but this is not the first time I've kind of seen some of this stuff happen. So I'm kind of going to be wary of some of these things going forward. It's kind of like, even though it wasn't really a competitive game, when you have these like really overpowered combos available and you're able to execute them, it's really hard to resist. And like I try to play the fleets equally so that they each, do their best to win. But then sometimes that results in like this inevitable like abuse of these overpowered combos. And it's a lot of times it's not based on the fleets. It's a lot of times based on these mysterious islands. They can yank in UTs, and then the UTs themselves, like the Gong, but mostly Alter the Loa. And then sometimes stuff like Pandora's Box or Karmic Idol. So there's definitely some considerations will be made to banning stuff for some solo games, not for all of them going forward, but yeah, there's certain things that just kind of, they destabilize the game. And there's like, this game was a great situation of where it came up where Unleash the Kraken fleet, they looked around at the beginning of the game in that situation, they knew they were going to get slammed by Baochuan. It's like, if we don't bring in Altar of the Loa, like we're totally able to, and we feel like we should, if we don't bring it in, we're probably going to lose. It feels that way. So then they feel obligated to do this like overpowered chaos, which totally like breaks stuff up, and kind of like destabilizes the game, as I like to call it. So anyway, it's still a fun game. And I was happy to use a lot of what I wanted to use. So we saw the Gong, we saw most of the Mysterious Islands came into play. Some of them came into play really heavily, maybe a little bit too much, but the fleets were able to pull off a lot of their like unique treasure strategies and Mysterious Island strategies, which is cool. We saw Switchblade Chaos a little bit early in the game, and then at the end of the game, it was fun to see Skinflare go a little bit nuts at the end. even though it wasn't really going to change the outcome. We saw a little bit of Kraken action. So main disappointments were the sheer chaos fleet just got, I don't know, they got kind of unlucky and weren't able to create as much chaos as they wanted. And then obviously that whole massive Baochuan crew combo was all for naught because of the Alter the Loa. But oh well, I'm sure I'll use it again someday. So maybe in a 60-point fleet, but we'll see. So that concludes this one. So Unleash the Kraken, this new 100-point version, is victorious in their first game, 36-23. And that concludes this 4x100 game. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and check out the other games on my channel. Going forward, there's probably going to be some Vassal Campaign Game 4 footage, because I should be able to start my next turn in that crazy campaign game as soon as tomorrow, here in August 2025. So eventually there will be probably some footage of that, and eventually a giant battle report for that, probably on Pirates of the Ben, if I had to guess. We'll see. So anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully you're able to play Pirates. Quick note, PS, I'm giving away some free lots, so if you have a play group and they're playing like semi-consistently, like preferably at least once a month, and you're also hurting for stuff, like you don't have any money to buy any pirate stuff, and or you've got new players that could use like some free faction lots or whatever, feel free to hit me up. I'm on the Pirates Discord, link in the description to join if you're not already there. And I'm parting out stuff from that. You may have seen the 2022 free Horde I got from very generously from Ray in Washington, and still parting out some big lots from that. And I might get another free Horde eventually too. So anyway, happy to provide pretty cheap lots for people that are starting out or groups that want to play and can't afford too many ships, things like that. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in more Pirates content.